September 1952 meant one thing for the majority of Britain's children: back to school. In those days, the roads weren't clogged up with cars. Most children walked or cycled to school.
Nobody I knew within our family circle actually owned a car. So I would have been riding 10, 15 miles a day on the bicycle, just getting to and from school.
Just like today, lessons laid an emphasis on the 3 R's of reading, writing and arithmetic. And pupils still wished there weren't any exams. But on the whole, today's students would find the schools of 1952 very different places. At playtime, children were separated, girls in one yard and boys in another.
You were always running. There was so much sort of energy. There would be the occasional fight, but really not much. It was sort of pulling about.
Another break time staple was the daily bottle of milk.
I think it was 1/3 of a pint that we used to have, and everybody used to have their morning milk break at 11 o'clock.
Nowadays, 1/3 of 11-year-olds are overweight. But in 1952, milk was there to fight malnutrition. That didn't mean all students enjoyed it.
One of the banes of my childhood was school milk. I would give it away. When we weren't allowed to give it away, I would somehow upset it. I would do anything to get out of school milk.
Perhaps the most significant difference between modern schools and those in the Coronation year lay in the way discipline was enforced.
Discipline was pretty strict in school. We always had to walk on one side of the corridor in silence between lessons.
Pupils could only speak when addressed, and misbehaviour was punished with physical force.
They would say, hold your hand, steady, and your hand would have been shaking like this, and you'd get 6 of those with a cane, and the cane would like shake like that, wallop. I mean, it was really, really tough.
If you misbehaved and you got a clip or a whack or the cane or whatever, there was no point in going home complaining to mum and dad, because they'd say, well, you must have deserved it.
The discipline boys learned at school continued to be a major part of their lives when they left. All 18-year-old lads faced a common future: 2 years of national service in Britain's armed forces.
What you were told to do, you did, and you did it on the double. There was the usual stretching and bending and lifting exercises every morning, followed by marching with a sergeant major shouting commands.
Although World War II had ended 7 years before, it was vital that Britain's military forces, under their new commander-in-chief, stayed in fighting shape. Because in 1952, there were battles to be fought in old imperial outposts like Egypt and Kenya, as well as a pressing new global threat. This was the era of the Cold War, when the communist forces of Eastern Europe, led by Russia, set themselves up against those of the capitalist West.
All the war, when I was a child, one was so frightened of the Germans. And then it was terribly disappointing in a way that after the war, we'd won it. Then we were frightened of the Russians. So it was sort of one thing after the other.
Many young soldiers, barely out of school, soon found themselves posted overseas.
The army was spread everywhere because there were so many pockets of communist aggression which had to be dealt with. And the British troops, Army and Air Force, joined with the Americans to deal with these problems.
While troops sweated it out under foreign skies, back home, the start of November saw temperatures dropping. And children fought their own cold wars as the country experienced its heaviest November snowfalls in over 30 years.
There was no central heating in those days, or if there was, it was only in posh houses. and you ran between rooms. Rooms were spot heated. I never left my bedroom without having my dressing gown and slippers on. That was de rigueur. You just did not go out in your pyjamas and bare feet because you catch your death of cold between rooms.
As the big chill held, families across the country began decorating their homes for Christmas, which meant a lot more work than today.
Well, in those days, in terms of Christmas decorations, we used to make them. You know, you didn't go to the shop and buy all the glistening stuff and everything else.
Children tried to be good and drafted hopeful letters to Santa, like these youngsters in Newcastle. And Santa usually did turn up, with gifts to make 1952's children smile.
It was because we had so little, everything seemed a treat, even the apple and orange at the bottom of the Christmas stocking and the little bag of sweets.
It was all very, very simple stuff. You didn't have scale electric and action men and, you know, all these things that you have today and computer games. Didn't have any of that. You had jigsaws, fuzzy felt stencils. There was never a Christmas without a fresh paint box.
Rationing and finances meant most people ate chicken for Christmas that year, but no dinner was complete without a Christmas pudding. Then families tuned in to the Queen's first Christmas speech, when she talked about her coronation.
I want to ask you all, whatever your religion may be, to pray for me on that day, that I may faithfully serve all the days of my life.
I think everyone thought, goodness, yes, what a responsibility she has to undertake now.
There were now less than 6 months until the coronation, and that January, some people received very special news. Choir boy David Bainbridge came home to an unexpected announcement.
All these bicycles were in the front yard, so I automatically assumed something I'd done wrong. So I went inside the house expecting something untoward and was told, no, I haven't done anything wrong. And I would be told when the vicar arrived. And literally minutes later, he arrived, and with this big proclamation that I had been selected to sing as one of the choristers at Her Majesty's forthcoming coronation.
Michael Skinner, a Savile Row apprentice, learned that his very first job would be working on coronation robes.
We had to get all the bits and pieces ready, make sure that the lace was all sewn up, the gold lace, that the silk linings were all sewn up. Basically, it was a lot of making good and mending.
And some well-connected young ladies received perhaps the most remarkable letter of all.
I have it in command from the Queen to inform you that Her Majesty has been graciously pleased to appoint you a maid of honour on the occasion of the solemnity of Her Majesty's coronation on the 2nd of June.
And I thought, no, it can't be real. It really can't be. I had to look at it several times.
I shall be grateful if you will be good enough to send me an acknowledgement of this letter. So likely I was going to say no.
Well, I was in America. I'd gone to sell the pottery, and I wasn't having great success. And I suddenly got this telegram saying, come home, you've been asked to be a maid of honour at the coronation. And I was absolutely thrilled. And by the time I got onto the boat to come back, my order book was full. Everybody wanted a piece of Holcombe pottery.
From February onwards, rehearsals for all involved began in earnest at Westminster Abbey, as this rarely seen Canadian footage shows. The Queen watched one rehearsal, but her busy schedule meant her own practices were done in private at Buckingham Palace. It was vital everyone knew their part, because, for the first time ever, the coronation was going to be shown live on television. The decision to broadcast had divided the establishment, and Churchill had wanted it to remain private. But it's believed the Queen herself overruled him. She wanted this to be the people's coronation.
I think that the Queen probably decided that, to go public generally was a good move.
The public agreed. 2.5 million televisions were bought especially for the coronation, making it the event that kick-started Britain's TV age.
Mrs. McCracken who was one of our neighbours, was the only person I knew in our entire district who had a television in her sitting room. So as soon as I knew that she was going to allow some people to come in and watch the coronation, then I was up there really early knocking on the door saying, please, can I be one of those people?
By April 1953, coronation fever had gripped the nation. People grabbed the chance to cast off the drab past and embrace the colourful future. In London, bunting was hung up, patriotic flowers were displayed, and the processional route was lined with stands designed to hold 250,000 well-wishers. Nationwide, preparations for the celebrations also started to take place.
Between Easter and May, the fever for the coronation was getting more and more. The centre of the city was decorated out in flags. Now remember, we'd never seen anything, our generation. The young ones hadn't seen anything like this at all. The town hall, Old Castle, all the main streets were covered. Houses were decked out in bunting. It was incredible.
Churchill even changed rationing rules, so there'd be plenty of treats at street parties. Most importantly, and unforgettably for children, sweets were taken off the ration.
The very first sweet or sweets that I ever bought was a Fry's chocolate cream bar. And I thought that I'd won the lottery. Yeah, I remember, and I fell in love with the Fry's chocolate cream bars for years.
The gardener put me on his bicycle, wheeled me to the shops, and bought me a bag of sweets, which he was just dying to do. It was a bag of small sweets, and I got very excited by this.
By May 1953, Britain no longer seemed a grey, antiquated nation. Daily hardships were being consigned to the past, and hopes of a brighter future under Elizabeth were becoming a reality.
They only left the house to take a walk.
No obvious motive, no sign of a quarrel, no evidence of attack.
Did her father kill her mother, or did the mother